Au whakataka tahau ki te uru, whakataka tahau ki te toka, ki a mākina ki na kiuta, ki a mātaratara ki tai, he aki ana te atakura, he teo, he hoka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. A ka mihi tuatahi, a mihi ki nā atua kaha rawa, a homai o kaha, homai o arawa, ki a mātou I tēnei wā I nā wākatoa hoki, a tēnei nā mihi nā atua, tēnā koutou. A ka huri o taka whakaro ki nā tini aitua, a kuwehe atu ki te pō, e nā mate, o ia marae, o ia takiwā, o ia motu, haere, haere, haere atura. Apati hono, tātou hono, rātou ki a rātou, apati hono, tātou ki a tātou, te hongo ora, a nā kānuhi ora, kua tai mai nei, a tēnā koutou, nā kai kaunihera, nā kaimahi, a nā memo o te hāpori e mā taki nei, a tēnei te mihi ki a koutou, e nā manuhiri, a tēnā koutou, nau mai, hara mai ki tēnei hui o tātou, tēnā koutou. So kia ora koutou. Just opening up with a whakatau, acknowledging those things greater than us, the gods of creation, those that have gone before us, and to all of us here in the room that have contributed to this and that are participating today. So kia ora, welcome here. This is our 598, we're almost at 600 council meeting. And we've definitely got a quorum. Thanks, councillors. I'm happy to declare the meeting open. We've just got a slight change of business that may happen later at 12:30 because of externals that need to come in. We'll go into our public excluded item. Then if we're within our normal agenda, we'll do that at 12:30, which is after the lunch break anyway. But we may be at that point in the meeting anyway, so it might not be a change of order if we're already there. So just noting that. Apologies, I don't think we have any, although I know that Councillor Rees, that's right, he come to see me. He's got an appointment that he needed to go to. So Councillor Rees is an apology. And we've also got Councillor Diche is online, and Councillor Cranwell, I know, is away. We all know that he's been away, and I'm sure he's going to be online at some point. And the same as Councillor Korako. So we all know they've been here this morning with us already online. So they'll come in, so they might be just late. Any conflicts of interest, councillors, with anything on the agenda today? No. We don't have any public forum sessions today. There's no extraordinary urgent business that I've heard of, and no notices of motion that have been given. So we'll go to number 7.1, which is our minutes from the 30th of April, our last council meeting. And that is on page 7 of our agenda. Do I have any questions about the minutes? I know there was a little typo that we've discovered that will tidy up around just a AM versus a PM and some of the timings on the minutes, but we'll tidy that up. Other than that, have I got a councillor that's willing to move the minutes, noting that? That counts. Councillor Ward, thank you. And Councillor Robinson seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. We're going to go straight to our first report, and that's 8.1, our submission policy and guide, and that's on page 18. And I've got Taflin, I think you're up to come and talk about this. Oh, you could introduce the rest of the team. Thank you. Kia ora, Taflin.
Kia ora, councillors. Good morning. So this paper is the submissions policy. It's one of council's policies, so that hence we're bringing it back here. And that is all I am going to say on it, because I'm going to hand over to the very knowledgeable Pip, who you would have seen a lot of yesterday as well around the annual plan, who's done all the great work on this policy. And this policy is around how we receive submissions, so not the submissions that we make out into central government in response to those, but how we receive submissions under the Local Government Act. So with that, I will hand to the expert.
Thank you, Taff. Kia ora, councillors. Good morning. As I've shared with you previously, this submissions policy was due for renewal as it had been first adopted through the long-term plan process for 2021-2031. So we've reviewed the policy and suggested amendments to the policy that bring it in line with Environment Canterbury's privacy statement. It makes the recommended edits make it clear what constitutes a formal submission and the avenues through which we will receive them, and also makes it clear that the policy, as Taff just said, covers submissions we receive rather than those we make. I will take the paper as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Got it, Pip. Thank you for that. And sorry I didn't read out your name. I had the wrong run sheet in front of me. So,
No worries.
kia ora, welcome. Any questions, councillors, on this? Yes, Councillor Southworth, Vicky?
Thank you. Just a question about, so we, in the first paragraph about purpose, we say it's on consultations, and I'm just wondering, is this also valid for engagement? Because I know sometimes we do consultations, sometimes we do engagement. I know it's a subtle difference, but it is, I think, captured in legislation somewhere. Or so does this actually mean both of those?
Yes, it does.
So should we put that, or do we not? Or do you recommend we don't need to?
Essentially, with engagements, council can choose how you do it. So having the policy in place means we've got something to refer people to so they can understand how they can make a submission with a small s. But with an engagement, you may choose not to treat submissions this way, or you may want to just take verbal or do other things. So that's why it's not locked into the policy, but we would use the policy of council. If you'd given us some guidance and said under this engagement we would like to accept submissions as per the policy, then that's what we would share. So we haven't put it in here because you can choose how you do that for engagements.
Cool. Any other questions yet, Claire?
Yeah, just I noticed that you start in the introduction and refer to the Canterbury Regional Council. I just wonder why there is not a consistency throughout. We've got in brackets even council or Environment Canterbury, and I'm just wondering, could we be consistent and just refer to Canterbury Regional Council throughout?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one, Councillor, because I know that it comes up quite often. So the current guidance that we have for staff at the moment is that it is Canterbury Regional Council, brackets Environment Canterbury, and then we refer to ourselves as Environment Canterbury or the council, if it's a governance part of the paper, or the regional council from there on. In legal or court documents, it's always Canterbury Regional Council throughout the document. So we know that there's been some guidance from different councillors over time. And I was talking to the Chief Executive this morning about bringing something back through to council so we can get a steer from you if you want that guidance to change from what we currently do, current practice, because our trading name is obviously with legal name Canterbury Regional Council and then Environment Canterbury. If your direction today is that you would like this policy to be Canterbury Regional Council throughout, then obviously we can take that direction and we can make that happen. So,
just on that note, I mean, I would suggest that we kind of park that broader conversation until the next council returns.
Claire?
Well, I accept that, and because there'll be some costs if we were to change branding and everything. Understand that this is a document; it's a policy, and I think it would just be quite nice if we started. They're not renewed every year. If we could start using Canterbury Regional Council, that's my personal opinion. Where it needs to be, for the reasoning that you've outlined, council, that's fine, but that would be my wish.
Thanks, Claire. Look, I think because of the resolutions we've got one there that approves it, but there is the delegation to the Chief Executive to make those minor changes. So that could be done if people are happy, and we can note that. I sort of note that the first time it's read, and then in brackets you can then, after that point, which is normal, then you can interchangeably use any of those words. That's the way I would look at it. But I get the point that we want to be consistent, so I'm pretty sure we could tidy that up after once we've approved it and with the second resolution to allow that to happen. So are people happy with that? Cool. So any other questions? No, we're good. We've got the resolutions there, and thank you, Pip and Taflin, for the work. We've got our resolutions that we can bring up, and of course the first is to approve the proposed amendments, and like I said, delegates to the Chief Executive the ability to correct those minor changes, and that would be a minor change because it doesn't change the context or the substance of the policy, just changes those words to get them consistent through the document, so we can do that. Have I got a mover? Councillor Southworth, thank you, and seconded Councillor Swiggs. Do you want to speak to that at all?
No, it's clear, which is always good, and I particularly like the how to do a a good submission guide at the back end. I thought that was a useful addition. So thanks, staff.
Cool. Dion, you wish to speak?
I think it's a good document. I think the increased clarity of the and compliance of things, the defining the formal submissions, the privacy considerations, and highlighting what low significance is and high importance. I think those are really key and really important. And I would also support the calls for the Canterbury Regional Council conversation as well. I think it's good.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All good. Let's put this to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. And again, thank you, Pip, for the work. Really good stuff. And it's really helpful for our community to understand the processes that we go through and how they can contribute to them. So thank you. Let's go to 8.2. This is a local government New Zealand conference attendance. So that's coming up in Christchurch in July. Very exciting to have that come back to us. I think it was here 2 years ago. And of course, the Regional Council, along with Selwyn and Waimakariri District Councils, are hosting this year's event, obviously in conjunction with LGNZ. So I think it's at Te Pai again. So that'll be cool. Sorry, who am I calling up for this one? Yeah.
Lisa and Amber.
On Amber. Amber and Lisa. Kia ora. Kia ora, Amber. So Amber's our advisor to the council chair and Lisa's our general manager of governance. Welcome. Hand it over to you to introduce anything you need to, and then we'll have any questions. Thank you.
Morena koutou. Thank you, Chair. This paper is really seeking approval for attendees for the LGNZ conference. At the time of writing of the paper, we had 6 people confirming that they would like to attend, but there's now a proposal for 9. And the only thing I have to add is we received advice from LGNZ that remits will be sent in today to the chair and the chief executive. So I'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions via the chair.
Thanks, Amber. So those remits we can focus on in the June meeting because that's still ahead of this July. So thank you. We'll have a discussion about them, I'm sure. Any other questions, councillors? So Councillor Edge.
No, in terms of appointing one councillor as the delegate, I assume that will be you, Chair?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yep. Happy if that's me. Is everyone else happy? Oh, what? Oh, come on. Ka pai. So as we get to these resolutions, Grant, we'll add the names into number 1 for the 9 councillors that are keen to go, and then we can add that into resolution 2 if everyone's supportive of that, and then we can get to number 3 as well. Any other questions, though, for our staff at the moment? No? Thanks, Amber and Lisa. That's great. So the councillors that have expressed a keenness to go, Councillors Swiggs, Mackay, Edge, Sunkel, Southworth, Korako, Cranwell, Robinson, and myself. So they're the names we're going to add in. I'm pretty sure that is 9 on the last count. Councillor Cranwell, you've got a question?
Kia ora. No, I'll be covered by Local Government New Zealand as I'm on the organising committee
Cool.
and helping out with the Mihi Whakatau
Yeah.
and other things that they will be covering my fees.
I think we'll still put your name down, and in the resolution, I think that's cleaner because you're one of our delegates as well, so that's really good. And then I heard that even I might be getting covered for some reason as well, but we don't know that yet. So let's just put us in, and if we don't have to use our budget for that, that's fantastic. So if we bring
Just again, Chair Pauline, you'll probably be covered because you'll be speaking and doing other activities during the week.
True, of course, mate. Yeah, all that stuff.
You have the opening. You have the opening address, so no pressure.
No pressure,
for the whole region.
That's all good. Can handle
no
that.
pressure, Chair Pauling.
Councillor Davies.
I'll be attending the young elected members, but not the full conference, so I won't be needing registration fees.
All good, thank you. And I know there's a few other events leading up, like the Te Matawata Hui. Previously, there is a regional sector tour as well that I know a few councils are going on, and there's a woman in elected women's breakfast as well. So you can all do them as well. This is just for the main conference part. So here we go. We've got the names. Councillor Burns.
This is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but given the location, I would suggest if you are involved with any opening, there's a moment's silence for Christchurch City Council.
Oh, come on. Well, they actually might be there. You never know. Because individual councillors can
I'll
still
take
go.
that on, Councillor Burns, and pass your words on.
Thank you, Councillor Cranwell.
So you can see resolution 1 there. So we've approved the following attendees. I think we've got the names all there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. That's good. Everyone happy that they are the names? Good. And then we might as well take these together, and then we can change the points here. Pooling. It sounds a bit weird, but we can put that there as long as I don't move it.
I'm happy to move it. Oh.
Oh, good. And the third one there is all good. So you're happy to move it, Greg?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Councillor Burns.
Thank you.
Happy to move. Got a seconder? Anyone? Councillor Edge. Cool. Any discussion? Happy?
I think I've said enough. Thanks.
Okay. Let's put this to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Looking forward to that event. And as we said, we'll have the remits to the June council meeting for us to vote on as well. We'll go to 8.3. That's on page 36 of our agenda. And this is the endorsement of position statements. People will be aware that we've had, we've had a few workshops on this. We had our public briefing on this that where we shared the drafts, and we had a bit of discussion and debate about the wording, and we've got to a good place here with these. I know there's a few other little things we might note today just to get them into the best place for us to approve them. But Taflin and Cecilia, welcome to the table.
Conscious you're seeing far more of me now that I'm Catherine than you ever did when I was Taflin. I have to go back to behind the scenes afterwards. Thank you for the introduction, Chair. So councillors will be aware of how these have been developed, and also through some previous submissions. So the number of central government submissions that have been made have obviously given the basis for these as well over time. And this endorsing these today will enable staff and councillors to be on a sort of consistent space around what it is that we can then use for developing draft submissions going forward as well, because we know that there's a forward work programme of central government consultations coming out for us. So I'll hand over to Cecilia, who's been doing the legwork on this, but I did just want to say that we have added a second resolution potentially in that will note some of the editorial changes that we've picked up, so we can agree that with you first, add to that resolution if you like, and then if that resolution then goes through, then that will give us the basis for any minor changes that you would like making from today with these statements. So,
thank you, Taff. So yes, this paper is to present those position statements that have been developed by Council for endorsement today. I'll take the paper as read, noting that the purpose of these position statements is to support proactive strategic work and advocacy opportunities in the context of the external environment, particularly the significant government reform program. These high-level position statements, they provide a framework for written and verbal advocacy opportunities, for example, letters, submissions, and to inform conversations with ministers and key stakeholders. They've been developed with the intent that further detail and examples can be provided in the background and to support of these position statements. And as the Chair and Taff has noted, you've been through a process to develop these through a series of briefings and workshops, including the workshop on the 7th of May where you provided feedback on these position statements. And I'll just note that we can pick up a couple of editorial amendments that have been identified. That's around the consistent use of percent, consistent use of Aotearoa New Zealand, and also just to insert the word including into the top of page 41 around the sentence around opportunities. So I'll just leave it there if there's any questions.
Thanks, Cecilia. Thanks for that. That's great. Look, I just wanted to give a little bit of background about this, just to sort of inform the public about how we've done this. So basically, at the start of the year, Dion and I, as the chair and deputy, got together and we did meet with each councillor and talk to them about their goals for the rest of the term. And what came out of that was a sort of a list that we sort of bound together in terms of some of those highlights and really important things that people wanted to see happen. But one of the things that kept coming up to us that related to most of them was actually the government's reform of the RMA, and of course sort of connected to that local government. And so we worked with Stephanie and the team, and also it's in the context of other discussions at like the Canterbury Mayoral Forum and to Kahika, which is the national regional sector where the regional councils get together, and noting that was a key issue for all of us. We just couldn't ignore the need to start focusing on that. So that's really what these position statements have come from. Obviously, we got together, we had our workshops in terms of forming those key areas that we needed to make a position on, and people will see them there, that there's managing environmental effects, managing natural resource use, economic prosperity, the structure of local, regional and central government, and treaty partnerships going forward. And so they were the key 5 topics that came out of this. And we've been able to get together some words that allow us then to utilise this in the reform program that's going forward with government, to be able to speak confidently when we are at the Mayoral Forum, when we are at Te Kahika, and when we are with ministers and with our communities, to show them where our heads are at, where we're thinking. And I suppose the main objective of it is to be able to throw some useful ideas into the debate as we go forward on this, because we're starting to form our ideas and we're trying to be proactive rather than reactive. So that's really the key for them. In terms of how they'll be used, like I said, they will be used in those forums where myself or Dion or any one of us has to represent the council in those forums. It allows us to be able to refer to these words. Obviously, you can embellish them a little bit, but of course, not going too far, because those positions wouldn't have been agreed. But it gives us some safety to actually start debating and discussing things with others. And like I said, to be proactive in those discussions. So I've been really happy with the process that we've done. It's been great to be working alongside councillors, but also with our staff to bring these forward and to get them endorsed. And as Cecilia noted, we've noted that consistent use of the percentage thing in the documents, Aotearoa New Zealand, and involving that word including. And so if people are happy that we've noted them, we can either have a resolution or a secretarial note that just notes that, and or you could give the ability to myself and Dion and Stephanie to make those minor changes to finalise it. So that's another way we could do it. You got a question, Claire?
One other small one.
Yep.
Second to last paragraph, Environment Canterbury, if we can just make that consistent with
Sure.
Canterbury Regional Council, which is in the bottom of the previous page.
Yeah, all good. We can
Thank
do
you.
that. Yep, Ian?
Well, I think we are deficient in actually the position statements on pages 40 to 42, and specifically around economic prosperity, where we talk about hydro generation, but we don't mention irrigation, and nowhere in the document do we even mention food production. And so we talk about innovation in aerospace, which is an interesting addition, renewable energy, emerging innovations and tourism, but we don't talk about food production, and yet it is one of the most significant parts of our economy in Canterbury.
Ian, what it's got there is that we're valuing existing land uses and resource allocation. So we're saying everything that we're already doing is really important. We're valuing that, but we're also looking to the future and seeing what else is possible. So the high-level sentences that don't include everything we do, but that's trying to be covered by existing land uses.
Well, I think it's deficient because you actually specifically omit those things, and people reading this document, the first question they'll ask, especially in central government, is why are you omitting food production?
Okay. Well, I thought we would cover it by valuing existing land uses and resource allocations.
You don't when you actually specifically mention other activities, but omit something. So that's the issue.
Unfortunate that wasn't brought up earlier.
Well, I did bring it up in some of the discussions, but that was overlooked. And so now we get to look at the final document, and you're allowed to criticise it.
Genevieve, you got a question or a comment?
Just a comment, page 41, referring to pretty much what Councillor McKenzie was referring to. However, I think we need to look at appropriate values of appropriate land use, including existing, because we might value one particular activity on land, but it's no longer appropriate. So we need to be able to look at that as well. And I won't personally put my name to something that says what is said there. I won't be agreeing to it because for that reason.
Cool. We're not on debate yet, but we'll get there.
Sorry.
Greg, you got a comment?
Yeah, I have a question, but I will say well done, and I'm aware of the work that's gone into this. My question is around, have you an estimate of how many times this has been drafted?
A few. A few times.
I mean, yeah, it came through that workshop on the 7th of May. Was the main draft. Yep.
Cool. Councillor Cranwell.
It's just in regards to, I noticed that earlier today we mentioned Aotearoa and the addition of New Zealand got added. It's just unfortunate that people don't understand what Aotearoa means. But anyway, in a context going the other way, is there a policy that anytime New Zealand's mentioned that Aotearoa is there as well? Is there on any council document?
I'm not sure, Councillor Cranwell.
Can I have that clarified, please?
Yeah, we do actually, Councillor Cranwell, have in our style guide, and the same with Canterbury and Waitaha, so we can make those changes as well.
Kapai, ngā mihi.
Grant?
It's really good. I just wondered when I was looking at the managing environmental effects, we haven't specifically mentioned the word climate adaptation, but I mean there is an element in the economic prosperity thing where it mentions infrastructure resilience related to climate. But I'm wondering if something similar, it might just be considered a minor amendment. If you could look at that maybe later.
Thanks, Grant.
And just see if it's needed.
Vicky?
It was a good process, just to say that while I talked to Zach and debate. But just a question, and I really like numbers, and I'm just wondering, do you think 49.64% is close enough to half to be able to take some of those words out and just say, and half?
Yes, we can pick that one up as well. Yep.
Councillor Sunkel, John.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that's been done on this. I'm in general agreement with what's there, and I think we could sit here all day wordsmithing what we put in, what we don't put in. It sends us in a direction. It talks about what we do today. It talks about what innovation and what a future looks like. So I am comfortable at a high-level document that it allows us the ability to take it wherever we want it. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other comments, councillors? Yep. But if you want to debate, we'll go into the debate if people want to move it. Yeah. Cool. So we'll bring up the resolution. We've got resolution 1, which is endorse it, but I'm just thinking a resolution 2, which I think is the easiest way to deal with it, is that we delegate to the chair, deputy and CD to make minor changes, as has been noted today, to finalise the document. Are people happy? Cool. And I think that's all we need, to be honest. So are we happy to move that down? Happy to second it, Greg? Cool. We'll go to debate now, if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, I've actually...
Thanks to Celia and Taff, sorry.
I've written a couple of words down. And I just firstly wanted to thank the staff who have worked with us proactively and constructively on developing these and all of the background work that we've had to get to this stage. It hasn't been just come out of the blue, it's been quite the process. And it is a collaborative process, and I do think it's an evolving process because we don't know exactly where the Resource Management Act reforms will land. We don't exactly know the makeup of what our TAs are going to face in terms of their removal of their building consent authority and also their water done well. But I think, New Zealand is standing at quite a critical juncture. And these Resource Management Act reforms, they're significant, but they have laid bare a deeper truth, in my opinion. And that's the urgent need for a comprehensive look at local government and how it works. It's a politically challenging path for central government, but it's one that they're currently reluctant to tread. But in its absence, we can't afford as a council to wait. And we must act. And my hope is that these statements allow us to shift from a reactive stance to one that's more proactive in its influence. We will not simply respond to central government proposals. So often we just get told, this is happening, suck it up, get on with it. I'm actually not willing to have that happen to our region. I want us to be influencing on how our region looks. In these uncertain times, clarity is really important. The positions that we've got today provide a coherent basis for our messaging to central government, mana whenua, stakeholders in our communities, and they give our dedicated staff clear direction for responding to the complex proposals that are particularly during the periods of our local elections. We have a flood of changes coming towards us, including the Local Government Amendment Act, but it's also not just the acts, it's also all of those things. The National Policy Statement for Fresh Water, for instance, will be coming very soon. And as these statements rightly highlight, Canterbury is unique with 70% of New Zealand's groundwater, braided rivers, diverse ecosystems, productive farmlands. We grow food, we need locally informed approach. These statements champion the regional lens and ensure that the national standards are complemented for our specific needs and knowledge, fostering ecological coherence, integrated catchment-based thinking, and all the approaches that we talk about in this council. And this will ensure that the significant freshwater resources that we do have remain highly productive, but also protect our environmental outcomes that we want. So, our region is a powerhouse for national and economic prosperity, and the statements will allow us to embrace the innovation, embrace what we've got, but crucially ensure that our infrastructure and resilience against the impacts of climate change. And they recognise the contribution that our country has to long-term economic prosperity and the need for environmental management alongside openness of innovation. Now, we all know that this government doesn't provide enough resources to the South Island. And I want us as a region to lead this conversation so the South Island does not get forgotten when it comes to Resource Management Act reforms and all the other reforms that we have. And most importantly for me, these statements reaffirm our deepening, maturing partnership in Ngāi Tahu. This is not just a statutory obligation, in my opinion. It's a shared vision and a relationship that needs to be built on mutual respect and underpins all of our work. Our partnership is based on that mutual respect. And as you know, we bravely will need to tackle the elephant in the room, the unsustainable structure and funding of local government. Even if central government is hesitant, we must continue to advocate for regulatory clarity, better alignment, diversified funding tools that our communities desperately need. Potentially amalgamation, if that's going to be talked about, we need to confront these things head on and lead from the front, not get told how we're going to do it. So structures are really important. Funding for local government is going to always need to be there. Service delivery is unsustainable the current way it is, and we need to call for the systems that government has to be more adjusted and respond better for our local needs. So the reforms are happening now. The implications will be significant in our roles and functions, and to delay the endorsement of any of these things that we're talking about is going to make us unprepared for the risks that the region's interests may be overlooked. So by endorsing the statements, we empower our council and our staff to provide a unified voice. We ensure the strategic work is focused and impactful. The biggest risk is not doing anything.
Greg, sorry.
Yes, mine will be nowhere near as eloquent as Deputy Chair Swiggs. A fantastic example of what many of us around here, with the odd word, feel like we could win a booker when it comes to writing these particular pieces.
What happens when you do a doctorate?
I will. Again, I just want to acknowledge the staff that have been involved with supporting councillors through the workshops. I think this has been a fantastic process. I can only imagine at times perhaps a little frustrating as you walked out the door, given that sense of creative ability that we all have. I absolutely support Deputy Chair Swig's statement, especially around the place that Canterbury sits within the country, and without getting overly political about perhaps the Crown overlooking us at the moment. This is something that I believe is strong enough, adaptive enough, in order to be able to tailor to specific audiences. And I just want to, again, congratulate the staff for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else wish to speak? Yep, there you go, Claire. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I thank you very much to Chair and Deputy Chair. I think you were instrumental in getting this with the support of CEO and staff, but also really appreciated the facilitators that were brought in for the workshops. I think that was very, very successful to have get 16 different views onto a piece of paper in this form. I think is a great piece of work. So I just really want to thank everybody that's been involved in this. And we've heard just a couple of comments before from several councillors about, well, actually it doesn't relay what I think, I can't support it as it's written. But not everything here is exactly how I might express things, but at least I've got a base that I can actually start from and talk to. So I'm very, very happy for this to go out and to be a document that we can actually use. So thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Vicky?
Yeah, just really reiterate what Councillor Mackay has just said, and I appreciate we noted before the addition of the word opportunities, including tourism, aerospace, etc., which I think speaks in part to the point that Councillor Mackenzie made, which I also had some concerns about that, and I could chuck in, value add, food processing, aquaculture, manufacturing, we're actually much broader, and I had a little bit of concern when I looked this morning at the sort of narrowness of the things that we're identifying. Actually, we need to be open-minded, we need to enable the good stuff that we already do, plus new things as they come forward, and we can't anticipate all of those things. But what I really appreciate is that we capture and recognise the real value of the environment in Canterbury, that's fundamental to the sort of value and the sort of both the well-being and also the prosperity of this region. So I think we've got that. I love the fact that we managed to all come together and get to this point, and I totally support it. Kia ora.
Thanks, Vicky. Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, Genevieve.
Yeah, sorry for bringing up debate at the time when staff were still at the table. I do like the document, but once again, I just refer to the original piece about valuing current land uses. Land use should be matched with the vulnerability of the soil, their geology and the water, in fact, the state of the entire ecosystem. I think we need to value more the intimate connection between both land and water and how vulnerable both are to our activities, our uses and the effects of them both. If something like that was in there, I'd be more happy because we need to actually look at appropriate land uses and appropriate water use, and I don't think this document probably states that. However, yeah, I think as it is, it's not too bad, but yeah, I haven't made up my mind yet. Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak? Yeah, Nick?
Firstly, I'd just like to thank the staff for bringing this to us, and also to our chair, our deputy chair, and our CEO. I mean, I think this is a very proactive approach to come to us with this document. I mean, I'm not going to talk for too long because Councillor Swiggs has, as usual, eloquently covered most things off. But this document comes with, the covering off the key 5 features. I'm not a wordsmith, but I believe it gives us a great space going forward to look after our environment, and I'm totally in favour of it.
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, let's put this to the vote. Thank you, Dion, again for summarising it as well. Very good. And just to note, when we had our 7th of May public discussion on it, we did note that the structure of local, regional and central government is something we want to talk more about. So we have got a workshop coming up about that, and you will note that on page where is it? Page 38 at number 22, next steps. That's what we're going to do. So just noting that. So let's put this to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. And we're just going to adjourn for a couple of minutes, just so we can sort out the cameras.
Can I just register an abstention on that?
Oh, sorry. Abstention. Thank you. And you're against. And Councillor Robinson.
Sorry, was there a question?
I'll just
turn your camera off. Cool. Well, we'll just adjourn for a couple of minutes. Thank you. Yeah, so welcome back. We'll restart the meeting. It's 11:15, and we're going to go straight to 8.4, which is our Audit and Risk Committee recommendations regarding council-controlled organisations. And this is in response to a notice of motion that Councillor Scott brought to us a few months back. And so there's been a good report done, good discussion at Audit and Risk, and I'll hand over to you, Grant, to introduce it.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'll just introduce it, and then Councillor Southwell will follow on after that.
And
Oh, sorry, Giles. Sorry. I mean, Director Southwell. Anyway, yes, I'm introducing this as Deputy Chair of Audit and Risk Committee, but also in the knowledge that I had involved with the Council's Investment Entity Investigation Committee way back in 2020. And I presume, Chair, that we'll probably take this paper as being read because it's very large. Councillor Scott, and I've circulated this one page of notes to everybody. Hopefully everybody's got it. Councillor Scott moved a motion to council meeting on the 26th of March requesting a report be prepared as outlined in item 6 of the agenda on page 46 at that time. Sorry, item 6 of this agenda. In the background, the council resolved to accept his motion and engaged O'Connor Partners to review the findings from independent reports, outcomes from previous investment entity committee, and updated opinion on the pros and cons of establishing council-controlled organisation, commonly referred to as a CCO or a CCTO, which is a council-controlled trading organisation. And the O'Connor report is attached as attachment 8.1.1 on the agenda, starting at page 35. The Audit and Risk Committee, Michael O'Connor presented to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 15th of May, and it gave an in-depth analysis and canvassed the issues identified in the notice of motion. And the key issues in terms of a summary are identified on page 46 to 47 of the agenda. So if people might want to have a look at that. So it gives a bit of a background, page 46, 47. And also one of the key issues is, and the diagram sort of provides a bit of a helpful decision pathway to make consideration of what we might want to do in the future. And basically, there was a feeling that we couldn't proceed with this idea at the moment. We needed to do a few things. And it's useful to look at pages 46 and 47. And also the decision was made to accept the updated staff recommendations, and they were identified on page 43 and 44. And on page 44, if we particularly look at clause 6 and 7 and 8, and they relate to the resolution 8 that has been brought to us today in our agenda. So in terms of the 6, 7 and 8, there was agreement that when deciding whether to establish a council-controlled organisation, that the council should consider whether there is a clear purpose that would best be achieved by use of a council-controlled organisation. And secondly, whether the benefits of establishing and operating a council-controlled organisation are greater than the costs. We also agreed that as yet the council has not identified a clear purpose that would be best progressed by establishing a council-controlled organisation. And then we therefore recommended to the council that the establishment of a council-controlled organisation is not progressed until it is defined that a CCO, CCTO is in fact the best mechanism for achieving organisational objectives. And the O'Connor report made it very clear. It was a very good report, made it clear of the options open to us and the considerations of what needed to be considered and what were the pros and cons with other things as well. So that's the nature of the recommendation number 1 on page 43. But I'll let Giles maybe pick up anything that I haven't.
Thanks, Grant. And just to note, the economy report is attachment 8.4.1. It's on page 49 of our agenda, just so people need to follow that. Giles, over to you to add anything you need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I'd add is that at the Audit and Risk Committee, part of the recommendations that were accepted was that we would summarise the criteria that would be applied if and when a clear purpose is identified. Just due to timing, we haven't yet produced that, but we will produce that and circulate that to councillors.
Thanks, Giles. And I remember the discussion too, Grant, and other members of the committee, that the updated recommendations were to make it more positive, to say, like, not like this. It was more like, when we do want to do it, when we do need to do it, these are the criteria that should be followed. So, thanks so much for that. Is there anyone else that wishes to ask a question? Yeah, Ian?
Well, I can't understand. I go to page 2 of the O'Connor report, figure 1, and the boxes say, is there a defined activity with a clear purpose? Well, I would have thought we have a defined activity with a clear purpose, and that's to either stop losing money or start making money on some of our assets. And so is it a distinct profit-seeking activity? My answer to that is yes. And therefore you go across Holden CCTO. I'm not convinced we necessarily need a CCTO, but I certainly believe the answers to those first 2 questions are yes. And we need some sort of entity by which we should deliver on behalf of our ratepayers, and we're not at the moment. And that's costing our ratepayers, as Nick tends to mention most times we discuss this sort of thing, several $1,000s a day. So, I'm surprised that the Audit and Risk Committee is still hung up and trying to say we don't have a purpose. I would have thought we have a very clear purpose, and that's better manage some of our assets. So we either don't lose money, we actually can make money from some of them.
You can answer something if you want, Giles, but I think it's an open-ended comment.
I'm happy to respond. I think the point that the report was trying to make is that the purpose needs to be more clearly defined than we wish to make a profit. It's the specific activity that you wish to make a profit for and the assets that would be involved that you would then go to the community for consultation. So, for example, that we wish to make a profit out of our land holdings and believe that the best way to do that would be to set up a CCTO. We would then go through the process of identifying whether that was a sensible option in terms of costs and benefits, given the scale of the activity that we were talking about, and then we would go to community consultation. So the specific purpose needs to be more clearly defined than we wish to be closer to the community or we wish to make a profit.
Thanks. Peter? Yeah.
I'd like the opportunity to move this once the discussion's finished.
Yeah, we can do that, Peter. Is there any other questions at the moment? All good. Thanks, Giles. You can definitely move that now if you like, Peter. So we'll bring the resolution up. And do we have a seconder? Yeah, thanks, John. Over to you.
Look, firstly, I must apologise for what I've done here because I don't think I've been specific in this request, this notice of motion. And so I apologise for the cost and the time it's taken the council. The reason that I wrote that notice of motion in the manner it was a generic. It was generic. It wasn't specific. But can I just say that I will be bringing another notice of motion that will be specific to the council at our next council meeting, because I think the thing that's happened here is it's given us an opportunity to say about all the things that we can't do and we shouldn't do. And so although we've had numerous conversations when we've been caucusing amongst ourselves about what we can and can't do with this organisation, this is a time when I don't think the council chamber's been very helpful for putting an idea in that we need to experiment. It was too generic. My apologies for that. I think there's a massive opportunity for CCO here. And I would just point to the McGrady-Winder report the background that applies to the opportunities that we have in front of us. And during our annual planning process yesterday, and I'm continually frustrated by our public transport operating model. There's the opportunity to do things differently there. There's an opportunity to try and solve some of the issues that keep almost like bad pennies, if you like, that keep flipping up in front of us, and we get frustrated because we can't do anything about it. So I think there's an opportunity there. And take the opportunity to read McGrady Winter Report, because it points to the fact that to make, specifically for public transport to work across the four entities of the Greater Christchurch Partnership, it needs a really strong partnership. Now, I don't think we've got one, actually. I don't think that we're joined up in terms of the conversations that we're trying to have for the good of people of Christchurch. We're not doing it out of any greed for ourselves. We want a better model. We know there's an opportunity for a better model, and I'm just a bit disappointed, Chair, that I've wasted 6 weeks or whatever it's been in terms of getting this response, which is negative. But hopefully the next one won't be. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I don't think it's like at the Audit and Risk Committee, the conversation was definitely that this gives some really good guidance about how you can do it. So I don't think it's wasted. It's actually got some really good guidance on the next steps. And so that may be beneficial for what you've just said. Councillor Sunkel.
Thank you. And seconding the motion, I disagree a wee bit with Peter that I do find that we have now defined a purpose, and whatever the matter that we might put our minds to, whether the things that you've discussed or others, we have a very clear process now that identifies those metrics that we need to do. And I in effect, I support the conversation you've just brought to the table, and it's one that some of us have been having for quite some time. But we now know what we can do and how we can do it. And the clarity is there. It's a matter of whether the table agrees at some point in time.
Thanks, John. Dion?
Thanks thanks whoever it was to bring all of that information together. I mean, I've been around this table for the first time, and there was a number of reports that were from previous councils, and I found those really, really fascinating. And it was enlightening to see how much thinking has already gone on in this CCO space, and I found that really useful. So I think there is a number of purposes that we could think about. Public transport's one, asset or income generating assets are potentially another one. But for me, really, what I'm thinking about is a lot of the issues that I see is not necessarily a structure issue. It's more of a talent issue from what we want, and then delivering that onto the ground. And that's not saying that we don't, and that's in the commercialisation space. We are not. That's not our business. The business of this council is not commercialisation or those things. It's what we do here. So do we as a council need to think? Do we want to flick that switch and go down that direction? If we do, then do we need to get the talent in-house, or do we then get that talent into an external CCO? And I think this is an interesting conversation, and I've been watching what's been going on with Water Done Well right across the country at different councils, and they're, in a way, they're having the same conversation right now, whether they put their assets, water, into a CCO or not. But they had a very clear purpose, and they had direction from the government through legislation that they had to do something. But the conversation at a higher level is quite similar. I think there's a commercialisation talent issue that we need to be thinking about, and if that switch is needed to be made, that's the switch that I think we need to first look at, because there are small things that we can unlock. There's opportunities out there that have come to us. If we had a way to negotiate those, unlocking some of those, I think we could do some really cool things, whether that's in a business unit of the council or whether that's as a CCO is another story. But this paper was really interesting. The background information, the background thinking was great. So I'm really looking to put my thinking cap on in those two areas especially, because I think there are huge opportunities.
Councillor Ward?
Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Scott for bringing this motion to the table. We did talk about it one day when we were driving to Christchurch together, and I thought it was a really great idea. Don't feel ashamed, Peter. It has created debate. I'd also like to thank all those people who have been involved in, I guess, giving us information in this document. I would question on page 9 some of the costs of setting up a CCO or a CCTO. Like 300,000 to arrange the finance. I mean, that to me seems really extravagant, and some of the costs for lawyers and other things too seem. But anyway, I mean, that's something for future discussion. I believe there is a massive opportunity to undertake a better business management of our assets in a different way. And I guess, as Councillor Swiggs has just alluded to, and I'd written this down too, utilising talents outside of this building, but also maybe bringing some future talent into our building to talk about in this space. Are we acting in the best interest of our ratepayers and achieving a better return on our investments? That's the question that I put out there to you, as to the other councillors in the room, and finding additional income streams over and above our rateable income. And I'm sure a lot agree that answer to that is probably no. We need a more commercial focus going forward.
Grant, and then go to you, Ian.
Thank you. I just wanted to say to Peter, no need to apologise, because what this has done is bring a very considered report by an external review of what's happening out there, what the experiences that other people have had with CCO. Some of them just have not worked for various reasons. So it gives us the opportunity to make more considered approach. And I suppose I'm reading page 25 of this report, that the broad conclusion was that there are likely steps that can be taken to improve outcomes that do not require council to incur the cost and management of additional complexity of establishing a CCO. And I think the report provides some options for us going forward. Collaboration with various people. Our assets, our main assets are, we have low equity in terms of our assets to actually do anything. So it's all of those sort of things, and I think this gives us the opportunity to say, okay, this is the purpose. What are the pros and cons of proceeding in a variety of directions? And I think we can't just jump to the conclusion that it is a CCO, that maybe there's other things that we can look at. So this report gives that, and by you raising that notice of motion, it's enabled us to have a better picture.
Thanks. Ian?
Well, I think what upsets me about all this conversation is that the motion is not giving us any direction as to where we want to go. John has alluded to the fact that there may be some direction, but I'm still not sure what that is. And the conclusion from the reports is that we don't understand the purpose of what we're trying to do. And yet Nick has illustrated that very clearly. You know, it's a return on investment and a level of profit from our investment activities. That gives us clear purpose, I would have thought. And the fact is that, in the nearly 6 years I've been sitting around this council has been hopeless at managing its assets. And unlike Councillor Edge, who says we have low equity in our investments, we actually have very high equity in our investments because we have a very low debt position. I'm not suggesting we increase our debt, but what I am saying is there is opportunity if you had the right structure and the right expertise, and Dion and Nick have both referred to that we could be doing a much better job on behalf of our ratepayers in terms of leveraging off our assets to get a better income stream to alleviate the pressure on our rates, and or invest in those things that this council holds important, such as biodiversity and things. And we're not doing any of those things because we're not actually, we haven't even cashed in our ETS credits. And so, you know, there's a whole lot of stuff where just decisions aren't being made because we don't seem to want to make any progress on these issues. And I'm really, you know, frankly, disappointed that we can't make some more progress, that there hasn't been a more positive reaction out of the Audit and Risk Committee as to where we should go next.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Scott, do you want the right to reply there?
Oh, yeah, well, thank you. Look, I think there's, and thank you for the words, but I think it's, and I shouldn't at my age have the naivety that I brought with this notice of motion, I shouldn't, but I was trying to be, as I say, have a generic view on that, and maybe that's got us to this discussion, but I still feel that I'm responsible for not being specific. And you know, since 2016 I've been involved with public transport, and you know, we talked about our ability with the city to get this right. And we didn't have the legislation. The legislation didn't exist that we could say, hey, here are the buses, you run them. It didn't. And I know that the city at one stage were really keen on the buses. And then legislation came along that changed the public transport operating model. And when Simeon Brown was the minister, I had a conversation with him about the fact of, so let's be clear about, we're not going to slip back into the public transport operating model. And he said, no, that's not the intention. But we need to have an understanding that anything that changes in that area needs to be effective. We've already identified with Greater Wellington Regional Council and other councils we've had conversations with in the past that a change in operating model gives us huge efficiencies in terms of purchasing equipment. If we take the margin out of the operating costs, then the ratepayers benefit from that. We've tried hard, and yesterday, a classic example yesterday about the MRT request from the city, that $200,000 means that, like, where are we joined up in this stuff? You know, where does that exist? I mean, the angst that this council's gone through in terms of PT uplift, you know, the change and needing the uplift to make sure that we've got all that stuff. And we do it on an emotional basis in this room, and it's not, and from my opinion, it's not good enough. We should charge an organisation, and maybe that is a joint CCO with the city. I'm not sure. I don't know, but we need to change something. I'll finish there, Chair, but I'll say this, that I've got at least 4 specific CCOs, TCOs, that I will bring in a notice of motion. I will need to get some legal advice whether that fits or not, or whether we shouldn't just do these things one at a time. So that's just a hands up.
Yeah, I think that's good, Peter. You know, if you draft something up, I think that can be worked on. But ultimately, it's your notice of motion, so you've got to be happy with it. But thank you, Peter. And look, I think there's definitely some things we could do differently, and this provides the opportunity. The report's helpful in providing that way forward. So, like I said before, I don't think it's been wasted. But I think we've all learnt that, yeah, being specific is a key thing. So let's go there. So thank you, Peter. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. We're up to 9.1, I believe. Just got to flick through the pages. That's on page 167. And this is our council resolution status report. And who is coming up with this one? Sorry.
I think it's David.
Oh, David. Kia ora, David. No mai hara mai. Ki te tepu. So David Perenara O'Connell. Te Pou Heringa, our Director of Ngāi Tahu Māori Relationships. Welcome up. Thanks, David.
Kia ora koutou. I'll take the paper as read and happy to answer any questions.
Kia ora. Any questions, councillors, for David? I know we've got the work we've been doing on the Wilding conifer work, that's noted there. And we've had good discussions. That was also at ARC. I think we had a good discussion about that. Cool. Any other questions, Dion?
Just on that Wilding Conifer thing, the government in the budget announced an extra $2 million towards that program. Have there been any conversations about how much money we may be able to get for work in Canterbury?
I'll invite my colleague, the Director of Operations, to answer that.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. So that there, you will probably remember that's IVL money. So a portion of that has gone into the the MPI National Wild and Conifer Program budget for next financial year. No discussions have been talked about in terms of how that will be divvied up. In terms of how it's historically over the last sort of 8 to 10 years, Canterbury's got about nearly 70% of the national budget. So and that's related to where the scale of the problem is, and I'd expect that to probably continue.
Thanks, Stephen. Peter, you got a question?
Yes, Stephen. So the quantum of money in the IVL known, because I also understand that DOC and other government agencies possibly get that money, and in the past they've put a bit of that towards Wilding Pines. Are you aware of any of that stuff that's going
on? So I'm aware, but in terms of anything other than or extra than what's been announced in the budget, so over and above those amounts, they haven't landed on any of that, Councillor Scott.
Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you, team. I'll just note the Waitaki plans action points there, and to note that there is going to be a follow-up, and I know that you've raised that, Councillor Scott, as you sit on the working group for that we are trying to organise a hui between us, Otago Regional Council and the 3 Papatipi Runanga, so that's definitely looking to be underway, so thank you. We've got the resolutions for this. I think it's just one. To note the status report, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Ward and Councillor Mackay, thank you, moved and seconded. Any discussion? No, all those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried, thank you. Let's go to 9.2, and that's just our previous committee activities and minutes, and this has got our minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee that we just referred to in terms of where that CCO discussion was had on the 15th of May. I don't know if, Grant, you had anything you wanted to add to that before we put the resolution up?
No, nothing to add. It's really those, again, on page 174, those 3 items, 6, 7 and 8.
Cool, thank you. Do you would like to move the resolution?
I'll move that, yes, thank you.
Cool. Second for the resolution, Councillor Robinson, cool. Any discussion required? No, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? That's carried. Kia ora. Let's go to 9.3, and this is the Chair's report. You can see there's a bit of activity happening over the last few months, and in particular, I just wanted to note the weather event that we did have that affected parts of Waimakariri, Christchurch, Banks Peninsula, and of course Selwyn. I mean, it was a massive rain event that did happen, and there was a lot of flooding in places. We had emergencies declared in Selwyn and Christchurch, and I know they're still dealing with some issues in Akaroa as well. I've been noting that with interest. And of course, there was a lot of issues that were raised around the opening of Te Waihora and Wairewa as well, noting that the Regional Council, Canterbury Regional Council and Te Runanga Naita, who are the joint consent holders for the opening of Te Waihora, but we're not the consent holder or the operator of the opening of Wairewa. That's Christchurch City Council jointly with Wairewa Runanga. But in relation to that event and the Waihora issues, I did meet with the Honourable Mark Mitchell, Minister for Emergency Management, and also local MP Vanessa Wienick, and also the Mayor, Sam Broughton, and the Chair of Te Taumutu Runanga Pua Media, Parata Goodall, during the event, so on the 2nd of May. And we had a good discussion. There was, obviously there was questions about how the process for opening the lake is undertaken. And it's fair to say that, we are able to share a lot of good knowledge in the room about the process, how we do that together jointly, and the experience and knowledge that we have in relation to that. And I think it's really important to note. I think a lot of people believe that those coastal lagoons like Wairewa and Waihora are like easy to open, like we have a tap or a button we can just push and just open those complex natural systems. Well, that's not the case. Firstly, they are governed by quite strict regulation. So we have the Te Waihora Water Conservation Order that sets some parameters around lake levels and how you can, or water levels, and when it can be opened, as well as the resource consent itself for those processes. But not only do you have to live up to those things, there's also biophysical and hydrological conditions that need to be met to allow the lake to actually open and be an effective opening so that it does lower the water level. And just to explain it to people, you need two main factors to be happening at the same time. You need a calm sea, so you can't have a massive southerly storm swell hitting the coast and pushing the gravel back into the to the Hapua mouth. You also need a high lake level on the inside to have enough hydrological pressure to push that water out to sea. And so I think people think when it was calm before the storm, that would have been a time to open Waihora. But actually the lake level was too low to mean that would have been effective. We could have scratched away, we could have got the bulldozers out there, spent a lot of money, pushed the gravel aside, created an opening, but unfortunately the water on the inside wouldn't have been enough to push it out and hold it open, and so it would have been a waste of resource. And then with the event coming, knowing that the southerly was going to then close the lake, it would have also been a waste of resource. So just trying to explain that to the public. We've had lots of inquiries about it, and I think going forward we're looking at how we can do some communications, and we are doing this in conjunction with our joint consent holder Te Waihora, Te Runanga o Ngaitahu, and of course Te Taumu Te Runanga, trying to understand and get that picture for people that they can understand that. So just wanted to outline that, and of course we have written a letter that you can see in the attachment to this document that outlines the background to those issues and what actually happened during that event, and that we did make the decision to open the lake before the event, but as I said, those hydrological and biophysical conditions weren't right to mean it would be effective. So just wanted to, I know that took a wee bit of time, but it's good for people to understand that. John.
Thank you for that, and could I please just have added I spent considerable time in there on the 1st of May with the Minister representing the region in that space, so just a note, the beginning of those conversations with the Minister.
Thank you, and I know Ian's also played a role with the community out in Selwyn, helping people understand, and of course we do acknowledge all of our teams that worked out there and our rivers teams, and our drainage teams in those respects, as well as our work with the other councils that we have received letters from other mayors to thank us for. So just acknowledging all the teams, and Ian, over to you.
All I wanted to add to your excellent report, Craig, is that one of the areas of discussion that seems to be in common is that the trigger levels for opening the lake in summer are lower than they are in winter. In which case, why couldn't you have opened it earlier? And the answer is, I think, as I understand it, is that you actually have those lower trigger levels for fish passage, not for lowering the lake. And for that, you need a totally different type of opening than you do in the winter for letting away high lake levels. And so I've been trying to push that message, but it's just a question of understanding.
And you're right, a lot of those things are in the water conservation. And so what I said about biophysical and hydrological, there's also ecological reasons why the lake level needs to be at a certain place in a certain part of the year. And you're right, fish passage is one of them. It also affects wading birds and nesting birds in the complex that is Te Waihora. So just to note that as well. Vicky?
A question that I had from a constituent was whether it's been looked into about being able to put a permanent opening in. Now, just to say, I'm asking that through someone else.
Yeah.
I can see all sorts of difficulties with that, both from an engineering perspective and from an ecological perspective, and a cost.
Yes, there has been, over many generations, there's been lots of schemes looked at for Te Waihora in particular, and actually in the background as to all the consent documents and the water conservation order evidence. That's all in there, and it is all on public record as well. So yes, it's been thought about. The main reason that it doesn't hold up is that the southerly swells that you get out of that on Kaitariti Spit just smash things to pieces. And I know Yayan's got his hand up because at Wairewa they do have a semi-permanent structure that they've created that helps Wairewa be able to be opened easier. So Yayan.
Kia tatou, through you, Chair Pauling. Actually, probably not talking about Wairewa, but yesterday I was in Whakatau on the north coast, and we looked at coastal lakes in and around this area, and there was 3 to 4 openings on lakes and quite large infrastructure. So we're really looking forward to when I return to actually do a little presentation on them, so people can see the ability. But I mean, there is a lot of more funding over here for those structures, but yeah, there's always opportunities to look at what's happening overseas.
Yeah, and to note on the background, you'll see, I think it's on page, just so people are clear, on page 201, the next lake opening consent does come up for Waihora in 2029, so I know the team will be starting to think about that and think about what the future looks like, because sea level is rising, so that creates an issue with lake levels on the inside as well, like I said. So yeah, there'll be things that I think the team will be starting to think about. And we are doing a review process with the Lake Protocol group as well, so that's all the interested parties that we consult with over Waihora openings, and I know that the team is working with them at the moment to look at what happened, what we can do better in the future as well. Ka pai. Is there anything else in the report that people have questions about or want to speak to? Peter?
Yeah, just to reiterate the Mackenzie trip, and again, for about the 10th time, thanks Nick for doing that, and thanks staff for the wonderful job they did. Emma, I think she's flown the coop to Sweden or somewhere, but she did a great job. She's a great watchdog in terms of moving people on, so that was really welcome, because there's nothing worse than lagging. But the issue that I want to take up, not the issue, but the point I want to make, and I made it to councillors and council only time this morning, was the really interesting concept that Te Manahuna o Raki have brought in terms of predator control, and some of the tech that they're using there is pretty groundbreaking and still emerging. And Stephen Hall is well aware of all that stuff, and Stephen's heading south on us, which is a bit of a shame. But it's a matter of how can we get a bit closer to the next foundation in terms of the work they're doing. I know that they want a closer association with us. Particularly, I think the issue, the thing that I really like is that stitch technology that you are working on, and talking to council every time about, how prevalent could using some of that tech be on Banks Peninsula. I mean, it's using drone technology, which is emerging faster than anything in the world, and the ability to to use that to actually hunt down predators. Although we did see a hot shot, didn't we, of the chasing the last hedgehog, and you could see the person, you see the hedgehog and see the person with a gun looking for the hedgehog, and the hedgehog just turned around and shot away, because it didn't take into account that it doesn't identify their vegetation. But anyway, that's a question. It's an open-ended question about that, and I know you, Craig, you've got some ideas on that, and possibly Dion too. So yeah, I think that was a big opportunity for us to learn what they're doing.
Nick, you wanted to add to that? Yeah, and I'll come. I've got others. Greg, Grant.
I mean, I just endorse Peter's comments around that space, and also the work that Peter's had to do with them up to this stage.
Cool, thanks. I mean, I think the idea is that, maybe a conversation with Stephen about what sort of connection. We don't want to obviously step on their toes. We want to just see what's proactive and what can be done to help inform probably our work going forward as well. So I think that was the key thing. I've got Greg and Grant and Genevieve.
Trip sounds wonderful, and I did have the opportunity very early on in this trimester to have Nick Host be down that way more primarily around the wilding conifers. It was really good, and unfortunately, though, it coincided with ELI versus CRC in the High Court, which I found riveting, along with Councillor Robinson. My question is, and I sound like a broken record, I do this every time, could one of the councillors or both the councillors that are involved with the regional biodiversity strategy give us a bit of an update, please?
Yeah, Grant and Genevieve, you were
Yeah, just quickly, we had a meeting on Friday. It was pretty good attendance from people who've been involved with it. It was my first meeting, so interesting to see where they're at. Interesting to see the conversations that the consultant was trying to get discussion going from us from various activities. We had a few exercises to do as well in terms of identifying some of the key components of where implementation might need to be and in going forward. I suppose for me, I was expecting it to be at a different stage as we're trying to get this whole thing finalised by August. But it's still a couple of months to go, and so hopefully Genevieve and I have got a meeting catch up with the team this afternoon, so it's just to sort of talk to them a wee bit more about that. It wasn't so much looking at the technical aspects, which I'm certainly interested in, but anyway, I'm hopeful that somewhere in the next couple of months we will see some really good progress, and hopefully a draft will come to us so that everybody can discuss, and hopefully then we can have sufficient time for the Runanga's review and comments from them so that we can shape up anything that's missing.
Thanks, Grant. Greg?
Can I just ask a question? It's my understanding there's also a parallel program going along with the... Can you flesh that out a wee bit?
My understanding is that the Runanga are engaging, but they weren't there at the meeting. But I think that they're looking at it too, and at some point we'll come together.
I think it's all outlined in the Strategy and Policy Committee papers. It was pretty clear to everybody what was happening in terms of the process and the timeframes. I've got, Grant, you had another matter you wanted to raise?
I was going to talk about Greater Christchurch Partnership, but Genevieve might want to just...
Okay, cool.
I just want to jump in about that, the biodiversity stuff. We've actually just received from Boffa today a really good summary of what the intention was and reflections and the key messages. And I actually think, yeah, it's pretty consistent with what I felt there. I actually thought it was good. You know, everyone has a different view on it, but I guess it's as much as your input or so yeah, that's coming, and I'm quite happy to share that round if everyone's okay with that. Yeah,
it's good.
So yeah, that's only just come in the last hour. And yeah, so on Friday I attended the Pest-Free Banks Peninsula. It was quite a large workshop held at Lincoln. And everyone was there, all the partners, maybe two missing. So it was really good. It was Department of Conservation, all the people putting effort on the ground. And so even though it was a little bit kind of because of the government announcement on the pest-free 2050 situation, they were still very confident in progressing into a whole regional concept at some stage, and so it was really honest and quite raw at times, but some of the work that they're doing, especially with possum and wild pig eradication, is pretty phenomenal, especially the pig version. They're down to like a small cluster, and the guy who does that is exceptionally good, using, as you mentioned before, Peter, drone and infrared sort of technology. But they're down to their last possum in Akaroa Way, and apparently it's greyish, pale coloured. So it sounds a bit like your hawk that you photographed in the Oshmatata area. Yeah. Oh, hilarious. So it was quite funny as well. So really good, quite uplifting and great.
Thanks, Genevieve. Great update. Ian?
Well, I just thought if we were getting close to the end of your report and the open part of the meeting, I might, with your indulgence, tell a heartwarming story about the floods I was told the other day. So those of you who travel to Akaroa know there's a chicken farm on the right-hand side of the road, a free-range chicken farm. In the height of the floods on Thursday evening, he was panicking because it looked like everything was underwater. He thought he'd lose 100% of his chickens. Matt Ironmonger from Willisden Farm led a team in, I'm not sure if it was that evening or the next morning, and towed all his chicken sheds up onto the hill and up the Kaituna and saved everything. So I think it was 25,000 chickens he's got there. He lost 150.
Cool. Thanks, Liam. Thank you. Grant?
Matt's now complaining that he's got too many eggs. He's got free eggs.
Yeah, just quickly, just to update people on the Greater Christchurch Partnership meeting we had on last week. The committee recommended that Canterbury Regional Council adopt the amended draft Canterbury Regional Public Transport Plan. So that went down really well, and of course tomorrow the Canterbury Regional Transport Committee will hopefully do the same, and then it'll come back to us for endorsement. We also endorsed the Christchurch Transport Plan. There were some issues related to the text and readability, so I think they're going to have a look at the design and the graphics for that. It was a bit tricky to read, but we basically received and endorsed that report as well. We also had a report. We endorsed the Joint Housing Action Plan, Phase 2 actions, and that's pretty good because they're getting on with all sorts of things there on that. We also looked at the spatial plan. There was an annual report. It's the first, the inaugural annual report of the GCP. So that was received as well for 2025. And the other thing we did was look at the priority areas program update going forward. And so we noted those. And we've got a good team of people obviously working on different things for that. So a lot of work, a very big agenda, and they're making good progress.
Thanks, Grant. I think that's all we'll do there, and we've got the resolution up on the screen. We'll bring up on the screen, and that's just to receive the chair's report. Do I have a mover for that? Thanks, Joe. Seconder for that? Thanks, Dion. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. And look, the only last thing I'll say is that there's a lot of work going on, and this came through our Strategy and Policy Committee in terms of submissions, in terms of government reform. So we've got over 30 coming up that we have to respond to, and that's even with a bit of a sort of exercise of prioritisation. There's still a lot that affect our role and function. So just a lot of work. Just acknowledge the team that are doing the hard work there. So thank you. Now, is it best to go into Public Excluded now, right? And then, so when we come back after lunch, we can just carry on. So we won't go into the item, but we'll just go into Public Excluded. So moved by John, seconded by Greg. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. So we'll be back here at 12:30 to go through that. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. And we'll go. I'll just let Liz catch up. Sorry, yeah, cool. All those in favour, please say aye. Okay, and we're back in public. Cool. So we're back to the end of our meeting here, and our next meeting is the 25th of June 2025. That'll be a big meeting because we'll have our annual plan, etc., and a whole bunch of other agenda items I know that are on the list. So we'll go to our Karakia. Who opened up this morning? Claire, do you want to? No, look, I'm happy to close our meeting today. Kia tau, nā manakitanga o nā mea karo ki runga ki tēnā o tātou, kua māhia te hua mā kihiki, kia toi te reo, kia toi te mana, kia toi te aroha, tūturu whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e tā ki...
Tīna.
Kia ora councillors. Kia ora staff.